Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the R&D Quarterly Learnings webinar. My name's Hannah Tennant and I'm the Membership Communications Officer here at Jisc. Our speakers today are going to be Phil Richards, our Chief Innovation Officer, John Kay, Head of Change Research, demonstrating the Open Research Hub, Duncan Peabody talking to us about the Sticky Campus Roadshow, and Andy McGregor, our Deputy Chief Innovation Officer, also answering any questions today. Before we get started, I just want to run through a bit of housekeeping, if that's okay. You'll be able to see a toolbar at the bottom of your screen if you hover your mouse towards the bottom. There are a couple of icons just to make you aware of. If you have any questions about the presentations today, please pop your questions in the Q&A, and we'll try to answer these live after each of the sessions. And if you have any technical questions or problems, please just let me know via the chat and I'll do my best to resolve them. And just to let you know, we're also going to be recording the webinar and we'll make the recording available afterwards. That's all from me, so I will hand over to Phil.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome from our Fetter Lane office in London, where 3 of our 4 presenters are sitting. Welcome to our second Futures Learning webinar. Now, Jisc provides a whole wealth of digital products and services, and of course what we're focusing on today is a particular section of Jisc Digital Futures and our research and development, our R&D work, and we always describe this as being little r and big D. It's a real focus on new service development. We listened last year quite closely to your feedback, which was that you'd like the opportunity to know more on a more regular basis of what was going on with our R&D work, and we came up with the idea of these quarterly webinars, Futures Learnings webinars, to try and address that. We did the first one back in November, and this is the second. So hopefully you will have all received as part a link in the email that also had the link to this video conference. Bumper edition, the second edition of our Jisc R&D progress update, February 2019, where we summarise a number of the projects underway, 2 of which you're going to hear more in more detail at the moment, but also pieces about Intelligent Campus, EdTech Launchpad. We also ran our first Horizons group meeting, which is our senior steering group back in December, where we focused on well-being and mental health. And we had a very interesting day, and actually that's being written up at the moment. And a report from that will be made available at DigiFest in March, and that's a good prompt to everybody. DigiFest bookings are currently open. I think they're open till the end of the month. Is that right? That's our members, that's your event. If you are able to attend and participate, it'd be fantastic. You'd be very welcome, of course. We look forward to seeing you there. So I'm going to hand over in a minute to, first of all, John Kay to tell us a bit more about Open Research Hub, the service which was formerly had a project name of Research Data Shared Service, or RDSS, so the AKA. And then, as has been mentioned, Duncan Peabody will tell us about Sticky Campus. After each of those slots, there'll be a chance for some specific questions on those 2 presentations. And then once that's done, there'll be a chance for some more general questions on the progress update and anything else you may want to raise, and the assembled cohort will do our best to answer. So Hannah, I'll hand back to you now.
Lovely, thanks, Phil. So over to you, John, to demonstrate the Research Hub. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah. I'll just get the slides started. Hi, everybody. My name is John Kay. As Phil and Hannah mentioned, I'll be demoing the Open Research Hub this morning. It's a service that Jisc's developed for the higher education research sector. The service is available now, and if you'd like to find out more after the demo, then please contact me or your Jisc account manager. I've got a few slides, and I'm going to carry out a web-based demonstration of our repository. If you've got any questions, please put them into the chat, and I can do my best to answer them at the end, or if they're more detailed later, we can have a conversation. Yes, just to reiterate, the service is called the Open Research Hub, and it provides solutions to manage digital research outputs. The Hub's first release focuses on providing a digital repository and preservation functionality for research data. This enables research staff and the staff that support research to publish these outputs openly and to safely archive them for long-term use. We're currently working on plans to increase the functionality of the Hub to deal with open access outputs. So this can be a core system for institutions to manage their outputs in the next Research Excellence Framework and to be forthcoming UK and open access policies. Very briefly, why are we doing this? Research active universities now operate in an environment which requires them to address issues around research data management and open research. Publishers and funders often mandate that data is findable and accessible to others, and requiring that data is preserved for a given length of time. There have been changes in the laws around storing personal data, which means that universities need to take more interest in how researchers manage their data sets that contain this personal information. There are concerns around research integrity and reproducibility, and calls for greater access to the original research data. Increasing recognition of the academic and societal benefits of open research and initiatives that openly share both the findings of the research and the data these were based on. All of this means that, that universities need to carefully manage, store, share if appropriate, and preserve their digital research outputs. And the Open Research Hub has been created to support them in this. This project's been developed over the last couple of years, and the sector asked us to develop a solution in partnership to help universities with the challenges associated with research data. So we've developed the Hub to meet these requirements. The Hub has 4 main building blocks. The first one on the bottom of the screen there, capture and reuse. This is in the form of a digital repository, which I'll demonstrate shortly. There's also seamless access to digital preservation systems for safe long-term storage and archiving. We report on the data and the use of the data, and we also provide advice and best practice through a research data management toolkit, Jisc support through the service, and also community events. Through gathering requirements of over 70 universities, working with our 15 pilot institutions and sector experts, we've built a service for the sector, with the sector, and governed by the sector. I'm now going to switch over to my browser, where I'm going to show you our new repository. So this screen is very minimal and can be tailored and branded to the institution. So I'm just making sure that's, yeah, that's good. Sorry. It can be tailored and branded towards the institution. For example, this has got St George's University of London logo and colours on it, as well as their internal links around the research data management service they provide to their researchers, what their research data management policy is, their data deposit guidance, their phone number and email address there. There's also space there for institutions to give more text about the repository. But the instance I'm going to show you now is our Jisc instance, and we've been using this for testing. So if a browser of the website came along and wasn't logged in as someone that's submitting research or approving it, they'd come in, they'd want to see what's in the repository. So just search for a commonly used term in this, the data. And there's a number of research data sets that come up. As you can see, we're kind of heavily using this for test. But if I click on a record, you can see we have the metadata, the title about the research, and the files there available for download. So this is what a member of the public say that came across the site. This is the view that they would see. There's functionality for them to cite the data, and that's got a citation copy to my clipboard that I can post into any paper that I might be writing. But from an institutional perspective, you probably want to see what we can offer your researchers or your research staff. So the key kind of workflow that we've developed this to is a researcher submitting a data set, and then an approver, a member of the research staff, coming in, having a look at what's been submitted, and approving that. So as a submitter, I've logged in. I've got more than just a Discover tab. I now have a tab that tells me about my deposits as well. So I can see deposits that need attention. These might be drafts that I've created with others, or drafts that moderators might send back to me. There's the items there that I've previously submitted that are pending approval, my drafts, and then data sets that are already published. So I can manage my research outputs here. If I wanted to add a new digital object, so in this case I'm going to add a data set, I'm going to create a new record, and there's three content types here, so data sets, articles, and theses. There's different metadata schemas for each of these. So the article metadata schema is based on REOC's open access requirements. Theses is based on the British Library's theses schema. So if I want to upload a data set, I go into add the data set, put a quick description in there. So I'll copy the one that was previously in there, so the visualization one, and put in a description for the data set. So I can just put in this as a test deposit. If I wanted to add more descriptions, so say a method, that was a graph or something like that. So I can add as many of these descriptions as I like. I can put in a keyword, and if there's more than one data set, I can put in a version. So you want to see who's involved in the creation of this data set. So I can put that I've completed this, and it's put my name there. If I have an ORCID ID, I can add that in there. Just put a dummy one in here now, and I can say that I'm the author of this data set. If I'm a member of a collaboration or another team, I can again repeat the fields and add more people with the same metadata as that. The system also wants to know about my organisation, so that we can link the outputs to organisations. So it's Jisc. And I can put in our various types of organisation identifiers, so we definitely know that's Jisc and the role it's played. So yeah, currently just publishing this, so I'll add the publisher metadata in there. With restrictions, this tab allows us to state what license that we might want to publish this, and we've erred towards encouraging best practice on our kind of default licenses. So I'm going to add the Creative Commons 4 license here. And if I wanted to close this data set, so default is open with this, but if there's a reason for me to close it, so I had some personal information in there, or it needed to be safeguarded for any other reason, then I can set that there, and I can write a description about why that's happened. I can also set an embargo for for future release as well. So I get to uploading my data set. So I'll just go into my files to upload that. So go back to the data set. So just upload a quick test data set. That's uploaded. If I upload a number of data sets, I can vary their licenses and access conditions as well. So I can click in here and change the license, change the access. One thing we're keen on promoting with this is creating links to research outputs. So we'd like people, if there was a paper that cites this data set, put that there was what work cited that, and put the identifier for that work. And again, I can put as many items in here as possible. So if I go to submit this, we'd like to easily show the user if they've omitted anything. So in this case, everything's green with a tick, apart from my submission, which requires another action. So I just need to go and confirm our T's and C's here, click that, and that can be submitted for approval. So that's alerting me that it was submitted. If now that I act as the approver in this, I can go in, click on the approval, and go in to see what's pending approval. And you can see there that the data set that I put is now there. It's got very minimal metadata, so I might want to go and reject that. So I could put in a reason, minimal metadata. I'm not happy with this. Can you look at that? Or I could go in and edit that and put more metadata in myself. Cancel the editing there, but yeah, I'll just approve that, and that will now show up in the approved part as the deposits. So, and yeah, as the admin, I can hide records as well. So that's the main workflow for the submitter, which is likely to be the researcher, and the approver, which is likely to be the research administrator. That's the quick kind of tour of our new digital repository service. But if I was, sorry, I'm just sharing screen here. So the digital repository service is only one part of the Open Research Hub. The diagram you can see here is shows the rest of the parts. So we've developed something called a core infrastructure here, which is enables that repository to work. It also enables interoperability with other services. So yeah, we have our data storage there. We have our publishing subscribe messaging service, which allows for kind of seamless integration with a number of services. Those services are our repository, and what you saw there was the tenant user interfaces that we built on top of our core infrastructure. But we also have APIs that talk with our preservation service. So if a submitter submits a data set, that gets approved, that could go straight into a repository, a digital preservation service without any other action happening. And that sort of takes the pain away from using digital preservation services and allows for sort of automated workflows. We also have the API to report on the data as well, produce statistics on usage and statistics on what's going on inside the service. As I mentioned at the start, this is available, and we're talking to obviously our pilots and a number of other institutions who wish to take the service up. And we currently have 3 offerings for our members. An end-to-end service which incorporates the repository that you just saw, the preservation services, the integrations, and reporting. That service is kind of like the full house service. But we listen to our members when they gave us our requirements, and some people have a repository that they may wish to use. Some people may wish to use the repository only. So we offer the repository only service, which is the repository you just saw with data storage and any other integration work. Or if someone's already got a repository they use, they can link into our preservation service. And we currently have adapters that we've worked on that link up with popular services such as ePrints, DSpace, even the pure CRIS system. So there are a number of kind of sort of plug and play modular services that we enable here. There's a lot of work we can do in this area. Just to give you a feel for our priorities, it's very much at the moment about research outputs, with our kind of first release being around research data sets. But you saw that we had content there for articles and theses. And we're working on providing functionality for open access to support UK and European policy. But we also want to sort of treat the research as a package and link up all of these different outputs. So articles linked to data, linking back to the software used in the creation of that, the provenance metadata, so people can reproduce this research in a timely manner. But also we know that some of the systems we have wider use cases outside of research, and we're looking into how those preservation systems can be used for other digital objects. Just a quick word on what we've done for advice and guidance. There's a research data management toolkit here that is available to anybody. It's online now. And what we've done is look to kind of signpost best practice and also include materials that we've created in the creation of this service. So please go and have a look on that if you're interested in any aspects of research and research data management. If you want to read more about the service, there's a article that was published last week by on 1KG and written by some members of our team. and I'll put the link for that into the chat after I've finished. So yeah, if you've any questions, please feel free to contact myself, our account managers, or I can attempt to answer some of the questions in the chat as well.
Lovely, thanks, John. Should we go over to some of the questions that we've got that have come in? So Chris asks, it's stated that each file must be under 2 gigs to upload. Is there a functionality to upload larger files?
Yes, there is. Currently, that's not browser-based, so the 2 gigabyte limit there is basically our kind of first release and what we think that the browser can handle. However, this service is based on AWS, and we can provide functionality via scripts to upload larger files to migrate into our AWS file store.
Lovely. Another one from Alison, what are the practical differences between setting a data set to be controlled and setting a data set to be safeguarded?
So that could well be about how folks access that. So if it's a sort of safeguarded data set, it might have a different set of access requirements and people that are able to view that. So they'll see it's controlled or safeguarded, and a statement about why that is, and say in a controlled way, it might be, okay, this is available to kind of a researcher in this field. Please contact the principal investigator. If it's safeguarded, then yeah, it's safeguarded to the institutional only, and yeah, that's the restriction placed on that.
Thank you. Can we customize the metadata? For example, add institutional email field.
So there's limited amounts of customization we can carry out with the metadata. We need to kind of discuss those one-on-one, but adding in kind of institutional email field, we have emails in our data model. We'd have to look at kind of how we display that on the repository, but that's something we could take up if you're discuss with you if you're interested.
Okay. One from Lisa says, do you know if the preservation part of the service enables or will enable preservation of born digital material?
Yes, that's the sort of primary use cases of the preservation services. So we use 2 well-known platforms, so Preservica and Archivematica, and both of those have been created to preserve a variety of born digital materials.
Thank you. How does this link to Figshare? In early iterations, there were going to be links to several different repositories.
So we currently work with Figshare, and we have 4 of our pilot institutions using Figshare repositories. We've worked with Figshare on a sort of custom API from Figshare. And in the case of the kind of core infrastructure you saw, Figshare would provide the data repository. And if people wanted to link into the hub, they would take up, say, the preservation aspect, and that message-based API, which is based on our spec, will be the integration there.
And this one sort of links in. What do you see as the key differences between the Open Research Hub and existing services like Zenodo or Figshare?
So we're very much based on the needs of the UK community. So all of our requirements have come from UK higher education institutions. So we can do more work when we look down our roadmap on kind of on open access and tailor that more to the UK policy requirements. Whereas kind of obviously Zenodo is based on European Commission, Figshare has a kind of global remit. We can sort of tailor this a lot more to the needs of the UK. It's also got UK community governance as well. So it's very much kind of we worked on this with our members and for our members and governed by them as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Where can we find details of pricing?
Talk to us. So yeah, please feel free to email me to us.
Lovely. And are there plans for interactive front-end research data visualizations, as with scholars at Cornell, which is an interactive knowledge network that provides visualizations for exploring the scholarly record of faculty members, researchers, and departments at Cornell?
So yes, we've got a long list of different options to kind of display data on our roadmap, and visualizations is up there, and is one it seems to be quite popular with our tech team. Maybe on a future call we can kind of show you where items are in our roadmap, so you can see kind of what we're tackling first in terms of how we're displaying the data.
Okay. We'll have to move on quite quickly, but just one more. Will data sets be discoverable from the data citation index?
Yes, it will. So the data citation index uses the DOIs that are generated by DataCite. So this repository generates a DataCite DOI for every research data set, and yeah, the DCI will be able to take that data set and the metadata from DataCite. If they need more metadata, they've got the link there to go and get that. So yes, they will.
Thank you. And we've just got one of our attendees with his wants to raise his hand and speak live. That's Alan. So Alan, I've just unmuted your microphone if you would like to ask your question. No? Maybe it's not working. Sorry, Alan, you might need to pop your question into the Q&A. I'm clicking unmute. Never mind. Sorry, Alan. Pop your question into the Q&A and we'll come back to that in a moment. Okay, so thanks very much, John. We'll hand over to Duncan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Bristol. My name's Duncan Peabody. I'm the Senior Lead for Digital Learning Spaces here at Jisc, and I will just share with you a few slides. Okay. Excellent. Hope we can all see that.
Yes, we can.
Okay, brilliant. So yes, just like to give you an insight into this roadshow that's now become a Jisc project and provides universities and colleges with a pop-up digital active learning space which they can have on their campus for up to 4 weeks. So just to position the value of this and some of the other issues that it addresses. There we go. Within just a couple of generations, we've seen school leavers going into higher education jump from 6% to 45%. That means there's a big change in demographics, the ability of, there's a wider range of abilities, not just those who are capable of listening attentively and making notes and researching, so we need to address the widening participation issues. And there's also a realization now that with so much information available on the internet and elsewhere, that we don't need academics now just to provide information. We can get that information elsewhere. We need them to really change the way, the culture that they deliver into, and that means changing the learning environments as well. There's also a crisis, I think is possibly too strong a word, but there's certainly a big problem with mental health issues in the UK, and the numbers that you see there within higher education are actually below the national rates for the population as a whole. But universities are now targeted with policies and processes and creating supporting services and a culture around this. And of course, it's obviously, as you heard from Phil earlier, it's important to our Horizons group as well. And then we've got Education 4.0. So according to the World Economic Forum, we're in the early stages of the fourth industrial revolution. This is being framed by artificial intelligence and virtual and augmented realities and big data. And we need both our staff and our students within universities to deliver and to develop and deliver better digital skills. And there's a real need that the engagement needs to, say, bring about a changing in learning culture. So we're going to see a larger percentage of learning, which will be reskilling and upskilling, that will now take place after graduation than is currently the case. And so the roadshow, which you're seeing there, is part of the solution. Active learning has been historically proven to solve many of the issues around education, reducing people who drop out from their education, improving grades, etc. And now with the with the wireless technology to actually bring students' own devices into these spaces and work effectively, that's matured. And of course, if they can learn in these environments with their technology, they can learn anywhere across the campus as well. It's not about you. So the images you're seeing here very much focused on technology and furniture that you see very visually, but it's not really about the technology and the furniture. It's more about the correct choices that need to be made about creating a culture of learning, where they say the academic becomes a coach, and the students are now in small, very supportive, relationship-driven groups. The Americans are starting to call it social and emotional learning environments. So part of the reason we started this roadshow is we recognised from feedback from universities that a lot of the developments for these new learning spaces and the engagement around new pedagogies was happening in silos. So people were going off to their conferences and exhibitions in isolation. There'd been a States conference. They would come back. They would want to share what they'd learned, but there was nowhere on campus to doing it outside of these hierarchical silos. And in some cases where there were spaces on campus, they were pretty much booked out the whole time with people who are very enthusiastic about using them. So we get the university or college to provide an empty space. We'll look at that in more detail shortly. We bring everything into that space. We bring all the furniture, the chairs, the technology to make it work. And this was a great location because floor-to-ceiling windows, highly visible. This was at Swansea University, and it coincided with an open day, and it was just a phenomenal roadshow. When we're also running roadshows, we do a couple of things, especially in larger urban areas. In London's and Manchester's, we hold corporate events. But what you're seeing here at Westminster is other universities and colleges who have come in. And that also provides a forum for them to discuss where they're at and realise that people very close to them geographically are struggling or succeeding with very similar things. And there's great sector intelligence, sector camaraderie that comes across there. And again, as a sign of the interest in these spaces, at Westminster, we managed to get the all-party parliamentary group for assistive technology to come out of the Palace of Westminster and actually hold their monthly meeting in the roadshow, which was very, very well received. So there's lots of evidence that these styles of spaces work. They help in all these areas that you can read through there. And the bottom one there about the teaching excellence framework is very pertinent as well. And incidentally, those students, they weren't told they could write on the tables. The pens were there. They just intuitively did it as a way of working around the tables together. So the teaching excellence and student outcomes framework, the assessment criteria, some of it is very subjective, but they have to get assessed on the quality of their learning spaces, the engagement they have, the types of engagement that are driving up both employability traits, so the critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork, but also then giving them skills as citizens as well. I'm going to just play you a very short video here. This is the guy you can see on screen there. This is Matthew Pryor. He's at Hong Kong University, teaching in the School of Architecture and exclusively lectures and seminars before, and they flipped to active learning in the types of environments you've just seen. And this is just two minutes from the end of one of his presentations that I thought would be worth sharing.
That's a shame we can't hear that, Duncan, I'm afraid.
Well, we like to practice what we preach at Jisc, and I think we've just pushed that technology envelope a bit
okay.
far. Zoom's worked very well so far, but perhaps you could just summarise what was being said there, Duncan.
I can summarise that very quickly. So basically, what Matthew's saying is that all the things they expected to come from active learning happened. So the student grades went up quite significantly. He actually got more students coming to class than happened before, so the attendance went up as well. But more importantly, everybody's happiness went up. He got to the stage in his career where he just wasn't enjoying coming and lecturing in those types of environments, and the students enjoyed it and they enjoyed being engaged. So there was a little tale to tell there about that from the real world. And we've started to look at accessibility and inclusion in here as a feature now. We are, say, as I mentioned earlier, the all-party parliamentary group for active learning, very interested in moving both education and the workplace forward in terms of assisting learners. And the big development here is a lot of development is going towards the cloud. So it's not about specific support for a specific student on a specific device, but it's facilities that every student can be more productive with, because a lot of the tools that would help a dyslexic would actually help everybody as well. So that's a key thing, and we're now looking very strongly at how we can, say, bring more of this cloud-based services into these spaces as well. I was going to play you another video here, but I'm guessing this one won't be so bad. Okay, so I'll stop that there as well, because you can obviously read the subtitles, but I'm guessing you're not hearing the commentary on that. But just very quickly, that was again at Swansea, and the students took it upon themselves to create this little video that was 2.5 minutes that just showed the other students how easy it was to connect, because they wanted students to go in there and use it while it was on campus in their own time. And as you can read on screen now, the outcomes from being at Swansea for just 2 weeks actually, but it was a very intense 2 weeks, were excellent. So around an active learning classroom, we've made up typically about 6 of these hubs. These very mature students here from the Royal College of Agriculture, Royal Agricultural University, apologies, they can put their information onto screen. They can actually put multiple pieces of information on screen if they want. What you're seeing behind them is the team screen at front of class. This is just showing that information can be taken from multiple tables and sources and put onto one screen. That can actually be shared back to all the screens as well. But it means that an academic can then show information from 2, 3, or 4 screens and draw the conclusions and the differences and the similarities between them, and give instant feedback on what the students have been doing. So again, that's another facet of these rooms, that you're not waiting for essays to be written and feedback. You're giving instant feedback and supporting as we go along. So just on the name itself, Sticky Campus, when we started these roadshows a few years ago, it was the Digital Classroom Roadshow, but we now recognise that to support those classrooms, you need to have these facilities right across the campus, in foyers and cafe areas. Lecture spaces, or what we were previously known as lecture spaces, are now morphing into dual purpose rooms where you can do front of class lecturing and also group work within the same space. There's some really clever designs that seat students in little hubs that's happening as well. And so now that it's come into Jisc, this was run as a little independent roadshow outside of Jisc for 3 years with the support of Jisc, technically in partnership with Jisc, but now it's come in-house. We are looking at bringing in other key offerings from Jisc, so some of the learning analytics, potentially the intelligent campus as well, but also training. So now when we're in sort of Portsmouth and Scotland and Belfast and places, we can offer our members training in those areas on a whole range of existing Jisc packages, which are going to be, again, just like academics have to redesign their curriculum to teach in these spaces as opposed to lecturing, we're going to redesign those so they're given in active learning format of small group learning. And more than that as well, some of you will know that Jisc is moving to a new office in its Bristol location this summer, and as part of that development, we are putting in a little sticky campus area within that that'll have 5 collaborative tables. So it can be used as a training room, it can be used as a workshop room, it can also then feature as 5 individual meeting hubs if it doesn't have that use on any particular day, and increase our our meeting effectiveness. So if anybody's interested in hosting a roadshow, we bring everything. All we ask of you is to give us a suitably designed, suitably sized space where we've got some plugs and we've got a data connection into the network. We bring everything else in. We ask for a small contribution towards the logistics, but more importantly, that focuses the attention on the people hosting it to get the best out of it for them. And we run it as a roadshow for you individually. So we'll tailor the training. We won't force anything on you don't want. We'll design the workshops so they fit your culture. So it could just be 30-minute drop-ins or half-day workshops. And we encourage, one of the very successful things that we introduced last year is we encourage the senior leadership teams at universities to hold their monthly meeting in it and just have a little expose for 10 minutes into what the space was all about. And that worked really well. That was the people responsible for designing these spaces found to have that support from senior level who were there and understood it to be very beneficial. And we're just ramping up for this year. We're going to be at DigiFest in a month's time. Then we're back in Birmingham a few weeks later at the UK Science Park annual conference. We'll have it there. And then we're going to be, as you can see, in the southwest and Portsmouth. We've got a couple of dates in Scotland, and we're talking to some people in the North and Midlands at the moment. So hopefully in the next few days we'll have some more venues announced as well. And also we've been successful in Europe. We were invited to take the roadshow to the European Network of Information Systems Directors Conference last year, and from that engagement came around with our partners at SURF in the Netherlands, and we've also had some other discussions on going about the value of this outside the UK and how we can capitalize on that to the benefit of Jisc and the UK as well, because there'll be things we can learn from those places as well as just taking it there. So if you'd like some more information, like to contact me, there's my details, and obviously catch this again on the recording. And my colleague Catherine is also very, very knowledgeable about this now, and will help you as well. So at that point, we'd like to just see if there are any questions that you've got around any aspects of what you've just heard.
Great, thank you, Duncan. If anybody's got any questions, please just pop them in the Q&A and we can answer them now. We just give it a couple more seconds. If not, we'll move on to our general Q&A session hosted by Andy McGregor, where we can talk about any of the projects and progress in the R&D space at the moment. I don't think we've got any questions coming in, so thank you, Duncan. If you've got any questions generally about the report that was circulated at the end of the last webinar, then please do pop them in the Q&A and we will answer them for you now. And I'll hand over to Andy.
Thanks so much, Hannah. Hi, everyone. So that's two fairly diverse elements of our research and development portfolio. We do have a diverse portfolio of research and development projects, and those are two very different ones. But part of the purpose of this call, as Phil said at the beginning, was to give people a chance to follow the progress of our research and development projects as a whole. So we circulated an R&D progress report. It was 4 pages. It came as a link in the joining instructions you would have got for this email. So we like to leave a little bit of time at the end for anyone to ask any questions on any of our other projects that we're working on, or any other issues about Jisc in general. Happy to take any questions. So over to you. If you have any questions about anything in that report, either pop them to the Q&A, as Hannah's been saying, or you can put your hand up and ask them verbally. I'll carry on burbling to give you a chance to type if anyone does want to ask any questions. Following this webinar, we will put the report and the recording of the webinar on our blog, which I believe is codesign.jiscinvolved.org. I'll put a link to that in the chat in a second. And as I say, we plan to do this quarterly, so the next one will be in May, and again we'll issue a report every time. If If you don't have any questions now, but something occurs to you later, please feel free to get in touch with me to ask any questions. Just search for Andy McGregor and Jisc, and my profile should pop up with my details.
Lovely, thanks, Andy.
I mean, well, people are still reflecting on whether they've got any questions. As I said at the start, this is only the second time we've done this, so we would be interested in your feedback offline, particularly interested because this is meant to be your sessions for your benefit. And if you've got any, we've had a very good numerical turnout today, so we'd be very interested in what people thought of it, and hopefully we can. Well, I think that's a significant additional number of participants compared to the first one back in November. If you can give us any ideas how to improve it and continue that trend. Obviously, we've picked one particular project, but very much focused on the research side of things, and the other side very much on the teaching, learning, and student experience. So we span that full spectrum of the core business of our members. Other ways of doing it might be to have a more thematic approach. For example, we're just really interested in how would you like us to organise these, because they really are your sessions.
And you can share that information either. You can just share it in the chat now. We're quite happy to have those that feedback in public, even if you've got some criticism of the approach. We're very happy to have that. Or you'll be sent round an evaluation form after the webinar, and you can give your opinion there. Either way is good to us. As Phil says, just contact us directly.
I think that might be it, Andy.
Yep. Okay. So no questions on the report this time, or feedback on the webinar. As I said, we do want to make sure this is useful to people. So please do let us know what you thought. It's really important for us making sure this is something that's actually useful to people. But thanks again to Duncan and John for the presentations, and to everyone for turning up today. I hope you found it interesting, and look forward to speaking in the future about more research and development work that Jisc's working on.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.